The gleaming violin trembled in Mary Williams' weathered hands as she faced the crowded community center. At 68, the Vietnam veteran nurse had never expected to stand on this stage, especially not with her back screaming in pain. Victoria Stevens, the center's director, watched in the front row, her lips curved in a cruel smile of anticipation. The audience shifted uncomfortably, aware they were about to witness an elderly veteran's humiliation. "I don't play," Mary had protested that morning when Victoria thrust the instrument into her hands. "Then I suggest you learn quickly," Victoria had sneered. "You're performing at our Veterans Day celebration on Friday." It had started during the morning assembly at Riverdale Veterans Community Center. Director Victoria Stevens, her perfectly coiled blonde hair framing her sharp features, scanned the room for any sign of disorder. That's when she spotted Mary Williams standing at the back, leaning against the wall. "Ms. Williams." Victoria's voice cut through the room. "Why aren't you seated with everyone else?" Mary shifted uncomfortably, her tall frame tensing. "I can't sit down right now, Director Stevens." Victoria's lips curled into a tight smile. "Can't or won't. This is exactly the kind of defiance I'm seeing too often here." She strode toward Mary, heels clicking aggressively on the polished floor. Mary lowered her voice as Victoria approached. "Ma'am, my back is hurting badly after yesterday's incident." "I don't want excuses," Victoria interrupted loudly. "When we gather as a community, we follow the same rules. No exceptions." Mary's friend Susan glanced back worriedly. She knew why Mary couldn't sit. Everyone who had witnessed yesterday's events knew. Victoria noticed a violin case propped against the wall next to Mary. "What's this?" "I wasn't aware you were in our music program." "It's Susan's. I'm just holding it until practice," Mary explained. A cruel smile spread across Victoria's face. "Oh, really? Since you seem to think rules don't apply to you, perhaps you'd like to showcase your musical talents. I'm adding you to Friday's program. You can play a solo." Snickers erupted around the room. Everyone knew Mary wasn't in any music classes. "But I don't play," Mary protested. "Then I suggest you learn quickly," Victoria cut her off mockingly. "Or would you prefer to lose your center privileges for continued insubordination?" Mary reluctantly took the violin case, her face burning with humiliation as whispers spread throughout the room. "I expect nothing less than a full 3-minute performance," Victoria announced loudly. "Let this be a lesson about respect for authority." The pain in Mary's back had started the previous day. Victoria had personally assigned her to move heavy medical supply boxes from the storage room to the second-floor infirmary, despite knowing about Mary's old service injury. "These need to be upstairs immediately," Victoria had insisted, ignoring the center's rule that heavy items should be moved using the cart and elevator. Mary had carefully tried to explain. "Director Stevens, the procedure is to use the cart for..." "Are you refusing a direct request, Ms. Williams?" Victoria had cut her off. "I thought military personnel understood following orders." With no choice, Mary had carried the boxes up the narrow staircase. On her third trip, she'd shifted position and felt a sharp pain as her old injury flared up. She cried out, nearly dropping the box. Victoria, watching from the landing, had merely commented, "Always dramatic, aren't you? This is why we need younger volunteers." That evening, Susan had cleaned the wound when Mary finally admitted what happened. "You should report this, Mary. She's targeting you again." "No," Mary had begged. "It'll just make things worse. This isn't right. She can't treat veterans this way." "She already did." Mary's voice had been quiet. "And she'll find another way to punish me if I complain." Unable to sleep comfortably that night, Mary had found an old photo album. Inside was a picture of her father holding a violin, though she had never known him to play. "He had natural talent," her son explained when he called that evening. "Grandpa could have been a professional before the war changed everything. He never told you." Mary traced her finger over her father's smiling face. "I didn't know he played music." "There's a lot you don't know about Grandpa," her son said softly. "He would have taught you if he'd had the chance." Now, standing in the community center hallway holding Susan's violin, Mary thought about that photograph, about opportunities denied and talents undiscovered. "What are you going to do?" Susan asked, pulling her back to present. Mary's phone buzzed with a text from her son. "How's your back today? Need me to call the center?" "I don't know," she finally answered Susan. "I've never even held one of these before." That evening, Mary sat at her kitchen table, the borrowed violin case unopened before her. Her hands, one steady enough to stitch wounds under artillery fire, now hesitated over the latches. Susan had offered to help. "I played in high school. It won't be perfect, but I can teach you the basics." For the next hour, Susan demonstrated how to hold the violin. "It's all about posture and position," she explained. "Your back is going to make this harder." Mary winced as she tried to position the instrument on her shoulder. "This is hopeless." "Not hopeless. Challenging," Susan corrected. "And you're not doing this alone." The weight and shape of the instrument felt strange in Mary's hands. But as she ran her fingers along the smooth wood, something stirred inside her. Defiance, perhaps, or curiosity. "Victoria wants you to fail," Susan said bluntly. "She expects you to either not show up or embarrass yourself." Mary thought about her father's photograph, about Victoria's smug face, about the pain in her back. "They're not expecting anything from me," she said slowly. "So anything I do will be a surprise." For the next 3 days, Mary practiced whenever she could. She would wake up at 5 a.m., careful not to disturb her neighbors. During lunch periods, she would slip into the empty recreation room at the far end of the center. On the third afternoon, Mary found her usual practice space already occupied. With nowhere else to go, she reluctantly made her way to the music wing, hoping to find an empty room. "What do you think you're doing in here?" Mary spun around, nearly dropping the violin. Mr. Carter, the center's music coordinator and a retired military band conductor, stood in the doorway with an expression somewhere between surprise and annoyance. "I'm sorry, sir," Mary said quickly. "I needed somewhere to practice." Mr. Carter's eyebrows rose. "Practice? Since when are you a musician?" Mary hesitated, then decided the truth was her only option. "I'm not. Director Stevens is making me perform at the Veterans Day celebration as punishment. I have 4 days left to learn." Mr. Carter was silent, studying Mary. Then he surprised her by asking, "What are you trying to play?" "Just the simple piece Susan showed me." Mary demonstrated, her fingers awkward on the strings, the bow movement jerky. Mr. Carter winced. "Your bow hold is all wrong, and your posture is going to cause problems." He noticed how Mary was standing, slightly hunched to one side. "Are you injured?" Mary briefly explained about her back. "That makes this even more challenging," Mr. Carter said, "but not impossible." He reached out. "May I?" For the next hour, Mr. Carter corrected her technique, teaching her to work around her back pain by adjusting her posture. "Before I retired, I was first sergeant with the 82nd Airborne Division Band," he revealed. "Music and military discipline have more in common than most people realize. Both require precision, dedication, and heart." 5 days before the performance, Mr. Carter made a surprising suggestion. "I think we should try Bach's Minuet in G." "That sounds advanced," Mary protested. "Trust your military instincts," he encouraged. "You have the discipline and the ear for it." Their afternoon sessions continued, with Mary absorbing everything like a field medic learning emergency procedures. Despite the pain and frustration, something was happening. Notes that once sounded strained began to flow more naturally. "You remind me of someone I once knew," Mr. Carter observed on the 5th day, another natural talent who came to music late in life. Before Mary could respond, the practice room door swung open. Victoria Stevens stood in the doorway, her expression shifting from surprise to cold anger. "Mr. Carter, I wasn't aware you were offering private lessons," she said sharply. "Just helping a veteran prepare for her performance." Mr. Carter replied evenly. "The one you assigned." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "How dedicated of you. I hope you're not giving Ms. Williams false hope about her capabilities." "On the contrary," Mr. Carter said, his voice low but firm, "I'm ensuring she has a fair opportunity to succeed." Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Well, don't let me interrupt this tutorial." The celebration is in 4 days, Ms. Williams. I look forward to your performance." She turned to leave, then added over her shoulder, "Oh, and representatives from the VA will be attending. No pressure." After she left, Mary sat down, the violin in her trembling hands. "She's making sure I fail in front of everyone important." "Or," Mr. Carter said quietly, "she's ensuring there will be witnesses to something unexpected." The next day, Mr. Carter insisted they visit Harmony Music Shop across town. "There's someone you should meet." Inside the small store, an elderly man named Mr. Rossetti greeted them warmly. "So this is the lady you told me about, Carter?" Mr. Carter nodded, then turned to Mary. "I did some research after hearing you play. Something about your natural musicality seemed familiar." On his computer, he showed Mary a video from a university recital nearly 50 years ago. A young soldier in uniform played the violin with technical skill and deep emotion. That's my father," Mary whispered in disbelief. Mr. Carter nodded. "Thomas Williams. He played with the Army Band before Vietnam. One of the most gifted musicians I've ever known." Mr. Rossetti disappeared into a back room and returned carrying a worn violin case. "This belonged to your father. He sold it to me before deploying, but I never could bring myself to sell it to anyone else." Mary carefully lifted the instrument from its case. It felt different, heavier, more substantial. When she drew the bow across the strings, the sound that emerged was rich and resonant, carrying a depth she'd never heard before. By 6:30 p.m. on Veterans Day, the Riverdale Community Center auditorium was filled to capacity. Mary peeked through the curtains and saw more people than had ever attended a center event before. Word had spread about Victoria's punishment performance, and it seemed everyone wanted to witness either a disaster or a miracle. She spotted her son in the third row, having driven 3 hours to be there. Beside him sat Susan, who gave a thumbs up when she caught Mary's eye. In the front row sat Victoria with several VA officials, pointing out various features of the recently renovated center. Dr. Eleanor Gaines, a respected figure from the Veterans Affairs Department, had taken a seat near the back, observing everything with quiet interest. Mr. Carter had invited her personally, mentioning a situation that requires attention. "How are you feeling?" Mr. Carter asked, joining Mary backstage. "Terrified," Mary admitted. "Focus on the music, not the audience," Mr. Carter advised. "Remember what we discussed. Play from your heart, not your fear." The program proceeded smoothly with various community performances. Finally, Victoria approached the microphone for the introduction Mary had been dreading. "For our final performance tonight, we have something special," she announced, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "As some of you know, Mary Williams will be playing the violin for us. This performance comes as part of our center's alternative disciplinary approach, encouraging our more difficult members to develop new skills rather than losing their privileges." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Mary saw her son's expression harden. "While I don't expect the polish of our regular musicians," Victoria continued, "I hope you'll all be supportive of this educational experiment." As she stepped away from the microphone, Dr. Gaines rose from her seat. "If I might add something," she called out, her authoritative voice making Victoria freeze mid-step. "Of course, Dr. Gaines," Victoria replied, unable to refuse such a distinguished guest. Dr. Gaines approached the stage. "For those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Eleanor Gaines from the Veterans Affairs Department. I came tonight specifically to hear Mary Williams perform. While Director Stevens correctly notes that Mary has only recently begun playing, I think it's important to remember that many of our veterans have hidden talents that only need recognition and encouragement to flourish." The pointed comment wasn't lost on anyone. Victoria's smile became brittle as she returned to her seat. "Mary Williams," Dr. Gaines announced, playing Bach's Minuet in G. Heart pounding, Mary walked onto stage carrying her father's violin. The auditorium fell silent as she positioned herself under the spotlight. For a moment, panic threatened to overwhelm her. Her back throbbed, her hands trembled, and the sea of faces before her blurred. Then she caught sight of her son, whose eyes shone with pride. Next to him, Susan nodded encouragingly. Behind them, She noticed several veterans watching with expectant faces. Mary closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and raised a violin to her chin. She thought of her father, of the legacy she'd never known she carried, of the music that somehow lived in her blood despite years of silence. The first notes filled the auditorium. Tentative at first, then gaining confidence as Mary lost herself in the music. The technical imperfections that Mr. Carter had warned about were there, but they were overshadowed by something more powerful. The raw emotion and natural musicality that couldn't be taught. When the final note faded into silence, the audience sat momentarily stunned. Then the room erupted in thunderous applause. Mary opened her eyes to see the entire audience on their feet, many wiping away tears. Even some of Victoria's supporters were standing, their expressions a mixture of surprise and admiration. As Mary left the stage, Dr. Gaines was the first to reach her, clasping her hand warmly. "Extraordinary," she said. "With proper training, you could—" She was interrupted by Victoria, who pushed her way through the crowd. "A surprising performance," she said tightly, though of course with more discipline and proper instruction. Director Stevens, Dr. Gaines cut in, stepping forward with a serious expression. "I need to speak with you immediately regarding concerns about your treatment of veterans at the facility, particularly female veterans." The color drained from Victoria's face. "I don't know what you're talking about. We have documented multiple complaints," Dr. Gaines stated flatly, "including forcing injured veterans to perform unsafe tasks, creating a hostile environment, and using public humiliation as a disciplinary tactic." 3 months after the Veterans Day celebration that changed everything, Mary sat in the back of Community Center, watching as a new director welcomed veterans to their first music therapy program session. The VA investigation had uncovered not just the incident with Mary, but a pattern of discriminatory behavior targeting female veterans. Victoria had been removed from her position, and the center had implemented comprehensive anti-discrimination policies. Mr. Carter had been named head of the new Veterans Arts Program, with increased funding for instruments and therapeutic music classes. Mary's performance had transformed more than just the center. 6 weeks of formal training had built upon her natural talent, giving her technical skills to match her intuitive musicality. Now, as she prepared to lead her first workshop for veterans with PTSD, she understood what her father's violin had truly given her, not just a connection to the past, but a way to heal the future. "Music speaks when words fail," she told a group of veterans before her. "It helped me find my voice. Perhaps it can help you find yours." As she raised her father's violin to play for her first students, Mary often thought about how differently things might have turned out. The path that had begun with pain and humiliation had led to healing and discovery. The instrument that had been thrust upon her as punishment had become her voice. Mary Williams placed her father's violin under her chin, closed her eyes, and began to play. Not for Victoria or the audience, or even for her teachers. She played for herself, for her father, and for all the music that had been waiting inside her, ready to emerge when the moment was right. Dear friend, this story reminds us that talent exists everywhere, waiting to be discovered and nurtured. Too often, our veterans, especially female veterans, face barriers created by those meant to support them. By recognizing and challenging these injustices, we create space for extraordinary potential to flourish. Did this story move you? Please comment below with where you're watching from and how your community respects its veterans. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that celebrate triumph over adversity.